Guys, hello, welcome back to a new week of content. Today, we're doing a review for the first time in a long time, and I've actually got 2 reviews for you this week. So, that's exciting. Yes, so first of all, today's review is going to be for this book, Meddling Kids by Edgar Cantero. This is not a sticker. This is printed on, which is annoying. It says it's a New York Times bestseller, which I suppose is objectively true. So that's, first of all, we're starting objectively. This was one of those popular books that I hear so much about. I actually heard about this book because it was being advertised on a poster on the London Underground, which is a risky move because I've read books that have been advertised on the Underground before and they were crap, and I've read books that were advertised on the London Underground before and I thought they were surprisingly good, although maybe objectively bad, I guess. But yeah, so anyway, it's a risk reading one of these what I call underground books. But this one sounded interesting. So basically, you might be able to tell from the cover here and the title that it is somewhat Scooby-Doo inspired. Basically, the plot of this book is the Blighton Hills. It's the Blighton Summer Detective Club. We'll get back to that. The Blighton Summer Detective Club is a group of kids and a dog from the 70s who just do Scooby-Doo stuff. It's basically just a Scooby-Doo knockoff, their club. They go around solving mysteries, masked men in rubber alien suits and all that sort of stuff. But the twist is there was their final case has been playing in the back of their mind with eldritch horror for the last 13 years. And it is now the year 1990. One of them has committed suicide. One of them is checked into a mental asylum. One of them has been in and out of jail. And one of them just, I guess, has PTSD. And now the surviving members of the club return to the site of their last mission to uncover the secret eldritch truth. So it sounds really good. It's basically Scooby-Doo versus Call of Cthulhu. Versus the Cthulhu mythos, which on paper, that's a fantastic idea. It's not a wholly original idea. I've heard it bandied about before. I just think that the two concepts do mesh quite well together. These kids investigating what is ostensibly monster mysteries that turn out to not be. But then mix it in with, well, what if one time it was a real sort of spooky tentacled Gribbly? And the setup's really good, and it's what encouraged me to pick the book up. And I think you can tell from my lead-in, unfortunately, the book is not very good. The New York Post said that I will love this sly take on the genre. Unfortunately, it's not very sly at all. It's also been called terrorizing and hilarious. It's neither of those things. It's really wow. I mean, let's try and add some structure here, or I'll just ramble about everything that's wrong. So we'll start with things that are done well. I guess the premise is really good, as I said, and it pays off on the premise. It sticks to it. It doesn't throw any curveballs there. You know what you're getting going in, and that's good because that's what I was looking for. The characters are mostly good. There are some so that you've got the three main characters are Andy Rodriguez, who is like a tomboy. I can do anything boys can do kind of girl. You've got Nate, who is a fantasy nerd who has checked into a mental asylum in search of eldritch truth, which is quite a Lovecraftian thing to do, so that's pretty good. And you've got Kerry and her dog Tim. The dog is like, okay, yeah, it's just a dog. It's not like a talking dog or anything. It's just a dog. But the problem with the characters, and I guess we're going to just talk about bad things now. The problem with the characters is with Kerry mainly because Edgar Cantero is probably one of the more juvenile authors I've read from. This whole book reads like a weird 14-year-old fan fiction where he thought it was really cool and he thought it was really funny. But really, it's not. And it's just kind of dumb. And I mean, I'm trying really not to sound elitist or like attacking the author, but there is when Kerry is introduced, there's like a 3-page description of just her hair, and it like does this weird thing where it personifies her hair, like her hair size, and it follows her, and her hair is overjoyed, and it has little smiley faces on each strand or something. This is just like a weird. I think Edgar Cantero had like a weird Daphne Blake fetish, so he rolled Daphne and Velma from Scooby-Doo together and created a hot nerd masturbation fantasy for himself. And you know this is true because he forces her into a lesbian relationship for no reason, despite specifically saying that she doesn't like girls. But her and Andy get together. Spoilers. Her and Andy get together because that's what he wants to do. And before you think I'm reading too much into that, here is from the about the author page in the back. This is literally what it says. Okay. Meddling Kids is his second novel in English, the first was the supernatural enhancements. His material, ranging from short stories to screenplays, often features women kissing, stuff exploding, and ill-timed jokes. It doesn't give me a lot of confidence, that, and if I'd read that before the book, I would have known what to expect. So let's talk about those other elements, mostly ill-timed jokes. This book suffers from the same problem that Ready Player One suffered, where Edgar Cantero has heard of the late 80s and the 90s, and he wants you to have heard of it as well. Almost every description is punctuated with some sort of weird reference to pop culture of the time, or or just some weird juvenile made-up word that he thinks makes it sound more funny, but it doesn't. It's awful. The writing style is truly awful. It really threw me off when I started reading it. Like, I had to stop to fucking cringe almost every line in the book. And I mean, what the fuck? It's hard to really describe how bad it is. You'd need to read it for yourself, but I really encourage you not to. Like, every now and then they'll like, I think Edgar as well, he's really averse to the word said, which if you've listened to any sort of like popular writing advice, you'll know that people encourage you not to use weird dialogue tags because it throws the reader out of the thing. But Edgar Cantero is not one for taking advice like that. He, for some reason, like, wasn't even satisfied to have just normal dialogue tags, like exclaimed or asked or whatever. He like makes some up, like a character does a quip, which they do often. And he did a quip, is like, he did a quip, and it was something to do with like some weird fact. So he did a quip, and then the tag was he triviaed, and it was at that point that I wanted to throw the book against a wall and never pick it up again. On the plus side, it is very fast paced, and I was able to get through it in a couple of days because it's not a complicated story. And I'm really disappointed actually, because the moments where Cantero sort of takes a step back, dials down the shit references and the crap humour, and just like tries to write a scene that is a bit creepy, he succeeds. And I really wanted this to be like a book that was taken somewhat seriously, because if you did this concept seriously, I think it would do really well. Like, you could have something really intriguing with it. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. And one of the worst elements of the writing is just how lazy he is with it. In my review of Aftercare Instructions by Bonnie Pipkin, I pointed out that she just sort of lazily did scenes that she couldn't be bothered to write properly by doing a play format, and then sort of loosely justified it by saying the character was in a play at one point in the book. Edgar Cantero, I think if you can see here, he does the same thing, only none of the characters are in a play, and just sometimes, with no sort of rhyme or reason, he'll just throw in expository dialogue and stuff in a script format with stage directions in, which, I mean, I don't know why he would do such a thing. It makes me feel like he did that for his first draft and then forgot to flesh out the story later. Really bad, really bad. The quips between the characters are bad, really like misplaced. Like when it says mistimed jokes in his author bio, I mean, really, like in the scenes where the characters are meant to have, you know, some tension and stress and fear and stuff, they'll still be quipping. They'll be quipping with each other. They'll be making jokes. You know, it's terrible. The characters are not written consistently for what they are. There's like an old woman character who, towards the end, just sounds like a mid-teens character, and I don't know, awful. There's a lot of fighting in this book as well, and Edgar Cantero is not very good at writing action scenes. Action scenes, I feel, in books really need to be smaller scale and slower paced in order to really get the tension across of the characters. But what happens here is the characters are attacked by like hordes of enemies, and like they just fight them all, like, and it's the sort of thing, like the way it's described, you can imagine it being like a kind of a cool scene in a film or something, as an action set piece. But in a book, it's just like, oh, and then they did this, and then this, and then this, and then this, and then, and because he doesn't take any time to really describe the scene, or none of it is like, it's all just random action scenes. They don't serve a purpose for driving the plot forward or anything. So there's no real stakes in it. It's just sort of page filler to have the characters do something. And it was really tiring to read them, really confusing to read them. And like after a while, like you read it and you're just like, okay, I think they've killed about 60 enemies, and like I don't know what's happening, where anyone is, what the room they're in looks like, or anything. It's really just not well done, and that's really sort of the problem with the whole book, is just that the execution is so lacking in almost every way that it can't be recommended. The idea is good, the execution is dismal, and I wish it was done by someone else. So that's Meddling Kids by Edgar Cantero. Don't read it. It's juvenile. It's hard to follow. It's not funny, but it tries really hard to be funny. The characters are okay, but they're not, groundbreaking or anything. They're sort of random, like they're just a mixture of cliches. Lots of reference humor that's just not, like, I don't care. References are not funny on their own. It's not a good book. Don't buy it. And if you think that makes me a bad person, I don't care. So that's it. Meddling Kids by Edgar Cantero. I rated it 2 stars, I think, because the characters were okay and the idea was good. But that's it. So I will see you on Wednesday with another review, and hopefully it'll be a bit better than this one. See you later. Bye bye.